Hi everybody, today we're going to be talking about technique or techniques and feeling and emotion in didge playing, how it kind of relates together and how important one or the other is really, or how equally important they are together, but also trying to put it in some perspective. A lot of people learn techniques. We all learn techniques to get sounds, rhythms, and very important for any musician really. So if you're going to become a didge musician, you need to get techniques. But also, what about the feeling? What you're feeling when you're playing and how you can captivate people. If you ever play live in the future, how you can captivate people, which in that case you definitely need more than technique. It's not enough. So I think, as I say, when you're first learning to play, when we start at the basics and you get the drone, all it is a sound, a vibration that goes through our ears into our body, and then we not only hear it, but we feel it. And you also feel it when you're playing through the didge, back through your mouth, jaw, internally. And you can hear it in your body through your ears, but also in your body via your jaw, and also just in the room, depending on the power of the instrument, really. So yeah, feeling it is really important, because for not just as a musician feeling it yourself, feeling that sound, just feeling. It's quite an easy thing to say, isn't it? Because we know what we mean by feeling, and it's, as I say, just trying to put it in context really with the technique side, because so I think further down the line, when we've been playing for a while, we practice lots of techniques to get more nifty on the didgeridoo, to be able to do more on it, and it's exciting and all that kind of thing, and it's understandable. You have to get solid techniques, and it gives you a basis for playing, doesn't it? Really, just a drone in itself needs a solid technique with the lips vibrating, and it can take weeks, months, and even years, and suddenly your drone can improve depending on how much you practice and play, really. But then you get rhythms and, a lot of interesting stuff. And it's, as I say, you've got to have the techniques there to start with. Now, the reason I'm just talking about this today is because I think sometimes some people get a bit too caught up with just the technique. Let's just say you've got a word phrase and you're practicing it, or they've listened to someone practicing something, somebody's listened to a player playing something, and they want to get that technique. And I think for some people, or at least sometimes, that almost becomes the goal, just to get the technique. The technique is the end goal. That's where you want to get to. Whereas for me in particular, it's subservient. I put the technique under the overall goal, which is the overall feel of the sound and the power and the energy and the nuance and subtleties, which, although are used by the technique, the end goal for me is to get that feeling. And when you listen to players playing, and particularly Indigenous Australians, for example, you don't just feel, when you're listening to not everyone's into traditional, so it doesn't matter if into traditional or not really, but if you are and you like it, one thing you'll notice when you listen to something like that is you feel something that goes beyond just playing and technique. There's something else there. You can't put your finger on it, but it's there because it's really powerful. And it's not just the power of the didge playing and all the technical stuff going on with it. There's something those Indigenous players can capture that you might think, I want some of that, And, of course, you can practice traditional techniques or go to Australia, and get involved, and sort of thing. But the point I'm trying to make is not that really. It's just that there's something much bigger, you know, to be had from didge playing than just getting a technique. And if you just think that's the end goal, the technique, then really you haven't got much of a high bar you set yourself. You know, you set it quite low, because technique in itself isn't anything really. I mean, it's just a subservient platform, or a subservient tool or technique, you know, these techniques to get you to that place where you can not only feel something amazing inside because of the techniques you're using, but also to express it, you know. And this is really the art of music, isn't it? It's whenever we listen to music, we're not struck by the technique, are we? We don't go, oh, you will listen to someone's voice and say, wow, what a technique that is. You know, you don't do that, do you? It's like you just hit by the feeling and power of that voice. You might be hit by the words, but it's the power, intonation, the musicality, the emotion, the feeling that comes expressively from that voice. This is the key to any musical instrument, really, is getting to that place. It's like if you look at a painting, and when you see let's just say somebody's done a painting and it's maybe a lifelike painting, you know, and they brought it to life, and you think, how on earth can they create that painting? How can they do that? How is it possible, you know, to create something that not only is technically, it might be brilliant, but it goes beyond its technicality into a realm of, you know, it's like, how on earth do they do that? You know, it's amazing, you know. And it's the same with didge playing, or any musical instrument. To get beyond that technique and move into that sphere where you can create something that's magical, absolutely magical. And that could be ambient slow playing, slow drone playing, because there are players that do more ambient stuff that you'll feel that whatever they have, they will feel it. You'll feel it inside you as soon as they play. So you don't need fast playing. But on the other hand, if you're going to do some fast playing, if you listen to some fast players, I mean, there are a lot of great players out there that do lots of fast technical stuff. And, you know, many of them will have the feeling with it. And when you get the feeling with it, it's like, wow, you know, you've got the impact, you've got the speed, you've got the whole thing going on, you can feel it. But if you've just got speed, technique, and there's no feeling in it, and then it rings a little bit empty and hollow. And you know, you don't want to be, particularly if you perform live in the future and you want a few snazzy tunes and you want to kind of get a bit of speed in your playing, and you need the feeling to go with it, because that's really where people get hit with it. You know, an audience, I'm talking about a general audience as well. I'm not talking about a didge audience, because I performed in front of general audience, and you know, when you capture an audience, you feel it's like an electric feeling inside your body, you know, because you're not just connecting with an audience. You forget your technique. Your techniques are non-existent in your head because they're already practiced. But then you're just expressing the power and the energy, the musicality and the subtlety and all the different aspects, and you know, it's coming from your soul. Really, it's coming from inside. You know, even you don't have to believe in a soul or not a soul. You can call it a human soul if you want to, but there's a soulful feeling, whichever way you want to look at that. There's an innate feeling that's goes way beyond the technique, but the technique is that channel to get you to that place where you think, wow, not only can you feel it as a player, but people will be captivated by your playing. And you know, takes quite some time to get there, because you do have to practice the techniques and things to get further down the line. But I'm just trying to put it in perspective, really, because I know I've spoken to people and they're wowed by a technique, and they often forget that it's not just the technique. The technique is given that player an ability to express the power of their soul, or the power of their musicality, or innate, you know, whatever it is inside them, they're able to get it out. And also, one really noticeable thing, I think this is really where feeling and emotion kicks in with practicing, because you can sometimes get plateaus where you're not connecting with the didge. And sometimes it's because you're not really connecting in here, in your heart, and your feeling, in your playing. Sometimes it's just because you need a break, you just gotta kind of sometimes drop it sometimes. But also, when it comes to practicing, sometimes you just need to practice this technique, and you don't always need to have to be fully connected, but because you're practicing technique. But at other times, you do need to kind of, when you're practicing a technique and you're trying to get the full power of a rhythm, then you kind of need to bring that feeling and emotion in, because that actually is linked inextricably to the technique. And it helps you with timing and everything once that feeling kicks in, because you're not intellectualizing it. You're suddenly then connecting to a part of the body, a part of the innateness of this sound. And once that connects automatically, it's kind of like you don't have to work at it so hard. It's like, because you're working at it because you're working that technique to practice. And then you're trying to, as you're practicing the technique, you're trying to get the feeling of it. And then subtleties and nuances and adjustments become more effective, So it's a really integral thing. So I'm just saying, that don't get too caught up with the technique as the end goal, but it as a kind of the necessity to kind of get to the point where you can express the power and energy of your didge playing, because that's the goal, is the energy, power, subtlety, nuance and soulfulness of your didge playing, because that's really what we feel when we listen to music. And it's quite obvious, isn't it, when you think that you don't really listen to the techniques of other players. You might listen when you're practicing to capture those techniques and to practice them, but there's different didge players out there, some really wonderful didge players, and the best ones are those that capture the feeling along with the technique, and the feeling surpasses the technique. It's just a subservient thing working for them to get that wonderful sound, really, at the end of the day. And it is magical in that sense. When you think of what can be done, in the human body with all the technical apparatus we have of practicing, but then when you've practiced over a certain period of time, and as I say, when you're playing live, you don't think of the techniques you're playing. They're already done. They're all automated in your body. Then they become automatic. But then what you can do is, when you're playing, is your consciousness then takes over, and you can kind of move. You can move around your sound and control it, because the automated part is working, the techniques are working, and then you've got your consciousness, your awareness to then control extra things or ad lib or whatever you want to do. That's the beauty of having consciousness, It's a great thing, isn't it, really, being conscious. So that's really all I wanted to talk about today. I just thought it might be useful for some people. A lot of people have, probably got that wrapped up, and they don't have an issue with it. And I think for a lot of us, we do feel it and stuff. But it's just like maybe at times step back if you're kind of overthinking. I've got to get this technique, and even if you're practicing a technique and you can't get it, just practice it and drop it and then come back to it. Don't worry too much, because in time, might not get something. Sometimes we have to accept the fact that there's something we're trying to practice we just can't get. But on the other hand, we might do, and then you can just carry on and, you'll get it. But as I say, really just the end goal really is for any kind of music. For didgeridoo sound, didgeridoo is a sound instrument as well, isn't it? I personally, over my life, I've had a love of sound, which is why I particularly like the didgeridoo, because to me, it's an instrument of sound, which all instruments are, but it's also an instrument of rhythm. And, I love the innate rhythm, but I also love the sound, which is why I've got into music systems, because I not only love the music and the musicality of stuff, but I also love the sound of it as well. And not everybody likes the sound side of it so much. A lot of people just like the music side, and it doesn't really matter, One's not better than the other. But I just like both of those aspects. I think for didge players in particular, they might be drawn to it just because of the sound, and so we've got both these sides. We can get blown away by that wonderful sound. Just a drone, you know, if you've got a nice drone and you've got deep didges to different sort of keys in between, it's just wonderful on its own. And then with all the rhythmic stuff and that, it just adds, doesn't it, to something really. So anyway, I'll just finish. I don't want this video to be too long. It's just a little chat to maybe just help gain a little bit of perspective, only for those that are struggling with it and are not really sure what, you know, if they have sort of lost a little bit of a sense of where they're going with their goal, you know. I mean, you might have different goals in your didge playing for the future, where you want to get to and all that. You might not want to be playing live in the future, but it's just a personal thing at home. It doesn't really matter, but as I say, just to kind of maybe get in perspective the you know, why we practice techniques and where we're trying to get to from the technique really, and get beyond it to express ourselves. Anyway, hopefully that's of some value, and good luck with the didge practice playing, and I'll be doing another video shortly at some stage as well. So anyway, that's all for today.